Yeah, baby.
What is up, everybody? Rajay back in the house on a Wednesday night. On a Wednesday night, not a Thursday, but another Wednesday. Back-to-back weeks on Wednesday nights. And guess what? We're going to have something next Wednesday night, too. And Tuesday night and Monday night. So things are getting kind of crazy. I told you this year is off to a great, fantastic beer start. Last week, we had Kate Bernard on. This week, I'm bringing another rock star on here. And what can I say about this person here? There's so much to say. There's so much to find out about him. But let me just tell you, one, he's the secretary of the New American Craft Beer Hall of Fame. So congrats to that there, to get that off the ground. Spent a lot of his time early on as a freelance writer. He co-founded a nonprofit to help support women and non-binary individuals interested in brewing. He was a copywriter, blog creator, editor, so on and so on. He's an advanced cicerone. He's a certified sommelier, which I had not even known that word until earlier tonight, but it's with cider, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. He's a Cheese State scholar. Who knew there were Cheese State scholars out there? For Wisconsin, no doubt, which is the cheesiest of the cheese states. He's also AFNA beer certified, which I know some of you that sounds foreign, but it's alcohol-free and non-alcoholic. You know, we do some stuff like that around here. And level 2 spirit certified. So this man is doing it all. But without further ado, let's bring in Aaron Gore. And the fun fact that I found out today that I didn't even know about until I was watching the other podcast from yesterday, apparently this man has had a wrestling career. So
oh, we didn't even dive into it, man. I tell people all the time, and thank you again for having me on, Rod. I love the fact I have to follow Kate. That's no pressure whatsoever. But I'll do my best to only be a slight letdown to y'all. But yeah, no, I tell people all the time that it's been an extremely interesting and strange life. And while you're in it, it feels utterly banal and uninteresting until I have to tell people some stories. And all of a sudden I'm looking around at people's faces. And I'm like, oh shit, most people never do that before. All right, that is okay. But it's been a good time. And, you know, as long as I keep growing, I keep learning. And, you know, most importantly, keep delivering value to an industry and to people who have given me so much over the years. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah, excellent. And I'm honored to have you on here as well. Me and Aaron actually had some great conversations down at the Ohio Craft Beer Conference earlier this year. And I know we'll have some more when we get down to the BA in Indy as well. So a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, that's a short trip for you, man. That's going to be a great time. And, you know, at CBC every single year, for anybody who's not in the industry watching this, just as a fan of craft beer, it's Craft Brewers Conference. It's the largest gathering of professionals across the industry anywhere in the world. And, you know, that's my favorite event the entire year. It's like the world's biggest multi-day party of all of my favorite people from all over, not just the country, but across the globe, who I just get the opportunity to see and spend time with. And, you know, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I tell people all the time, if there's only one brewery left, you know, in the world, I'll be the one putting up the chairs at the end of the night. And, you know, at CBC from this point until the day that they have to scrape my corpse off the ground with a shovel, I'll be there. So can't miss it. Wouldn't miss it for the world.
Right. And my first time actually going to the event here, so I'm pumped to actually get a chance to go. I was going to go a few years back. Well, maybe it was last year. When was it in Nashville? Was that last year?
2 years ago. Last year was Las Vegas, which that's a podcast of its own, doing the postmortem on that one. But Nashville was an amazing time.
Yeah. So I almost went to Nashville, but just couldn't get stuff together at the time. I kind of looked at it late, but this year definitely being able to take advantage of that and get over to Indianapolis, and really looks to be a fantastic setup. And if the Ohio Brewers Conference is even a fraction of what it was kind of there, it's going to be a blowout type event. I know already, just because that was such a great event that Mary and Justin and the team put on too. So,
oh yeah, huge shout out to everybody at the Ohio Craft Brewers Association. They put on an incredible event, one of the best in the country, and that's the right way to think about it. You know, CBC really is just one of those, but blown up. And I don't mean that to its detriment. You know, that's one of the beautiful things about it, because it's that exact same sense of camaraderie, of community, of education and learning and development and networking, and honestly taking a moment out in an industry that it's as much a subculture as it is a business. It's as much a community and a group of people as it is anything about what's in the glass, but it can also be very isolating. Like running any sort of small business can be very isolating. So those moments where we're all able to get in one place and celebrate the fact that for whatever else we don't have in common, we at least got this in common, and use that as a jumping off point to so many of the other things we do have in common we may not have even realized. I think there's something beautiful about that, and I absolutely love it. Glad you're going to be coming out finally, Rod.
Yeah, glad to finally get out there. And speaking of what you just posed there, what beer did you actually crack open for our show tonight that we're
so
because we are enjoying some beers as we go along here as usual.
Yeah, no, so I was very fortunate enough to be hosting one of the hosts of the American Craft Beer Hall of Fame's inaugural class of inductees just a few weeks ago. I was based at Dogfish Head, so myself and Sam Calagione were hosting it out of there. And on my way out, they got a care package from a collaboration they did with Burial Brewing in Asheville. If you're from the West Coast, Burial's probably more well known on the East, but absolutely stellar brewery. The next bad beer from them I have will be the first. But this one, I don't know if you can see, that's the Treehouse, or at least a rendition of the Treehouse from outside of Dogfish Head's Milton Brewery, their OG facility. And this is a mystical guide for the critical moment double IPA, because like all of Burial's beers, the name of this damn thing sounds like heavy metal Mad Libs, and the artwork looks like something I need to go to my local tattoo artist and get done. But it is absolutely spectacular. And thank you, Sam, for sending me home with some, as well as sending both my girls home with some goodies from the merch store, because that helped them be a lot more tolerant of sitting and watching Daddy run his mouth on stage for a couple hours.
Yeah, got to keep them happy too, for sure. So,
oh yeah, they were raised around this, but they've got the patience of a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So anything that keeps them from running up on stage and screaming for an hour, that helps all of us, and I mean it, all of us.
Definitely. And I'm actually going to crack open one here from, I want to say sort of one of our fallen breweries, but not, because the brewery and the tap house itself is closed, but the canning line is going to keep them alive in production on making it. So it's kind of weird. Like, you can't go anywhere to drink it now, but you can still buy it in the store, right? So, so it's kind of like, it's like you're half dead, but you're not fully dead type situation. You know, you're still around.
A little bit of a zombie situation.
It's a little bit Weekend at Bernie's, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like
that's all right. Hey, we're having fun, but let's be clear, it's dead.
It's dead. Yeah. But I am actually going to crack open one Taft's in their Hoppy Camper. Taft's Brewing, which was here in Cincinnati. You might have been familiar with them from coming through Cincinnati.
Oh, I am very, very familiar with the Cincinnati beer scene. I've actually got friends who live right around the corner from the now former Brewporium. I know Whit Hetzer, who leads the charge over there. So great folks. Definitely sad to see that brand rolling up a bit, but I know on the business side they're making a lot of the right decisions, so I don't begrudge them for anything. But definitely one of those brands that helped build the area, helped build craft beer in Cincinnati in this modern era. And, you know, they were really one of the ones alongside Ryan Geist that helped turn OTR into the craft beer mecca that it is today. So, you know, sad to see it heading a direction I'd rather not head, but excited for everything that they have accomplished and everything that's still to come for the company that's still producing the product, even if the actual tap room's not open.
Yeah, definitely. And the whole, it was between them and Urban Artifact, but they were the two that came to the city. That
shout out Scotty. Scotty, I owe you an email.
Scotty's doing well. I actually caught up with Scotty at the Cincy Beer Fest and ended up volunteering, and I was working at Scotty's booth for a bit of time. I was actually working at many booths. So I've done so many different beer fests. After a point, you've been down this road too. It's kind of like everybody gets kind of the thing, but it's always like those last ones that are done. Like, okay, so you're a floater, so you'll pop in wherever you're going, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, people were coming out like, weren't you just over there? Yeah, I was there. Now I'm here. Now I'm like, I don't have any clones. I wish I had a clone because I wouldn't have to go to work, but I don't have any. So I'm all over the place just bopping around. But Scotty, fantastic beers. Urban Artifact had that tweak again. That tweak is so fantastic. I don't know if you've had that yet from them. That is pretty smooth. Yeah. And they actually had teamed up with one of the THC drinks that they had there too. That was one of the first ones that sold out when we were there. Like, everybody just fly. I mean, it was gone. Like, you come back over for like, can I get another? Nope, it's already gone. Like, if you didn't get it in that first like hour, forget it. You weren't getting it.
I can't do that, man. I can throw this back all day, all night, no problem. Would be perfectly fine. Could do whatever you needed me to. I'm a professional. Damn it, I've been doing this for years. Ooh, I throw back one THC beverage and I will be sleeping.
Yeah.
I could be out and about. I could be nice, cozy in my bed, but I am such a cheap date. That does not necessarily preclude me enjoying it, but I would never be doing it at a beer fest. It would be the shortest beer fest of my life because I would be off in a corner somewhere, hoping to God nobody bothered me.
Well, I feel like now when they do them, because they've tweaked down some of the dosages where they're kind of low, I think. So they're not really too bad. Like I remember a few years ago, one of the homebrewers knew made THC one he sent out to me, and that one you felt it. So nowadays you don't feel like he did a few years ago, but
Well, part of the thing is when they first came out, people were putting dosages that'd be a lot more familiar to something like a gummy or something like smoking a blunt or
yeah.
pipe or something. And the reasoning behind that was that those are dosages people are familiar with. And I played around actually in the THC beverage industry, so this is all coming from experience or in the hard way because I needed one other industry to play around in. But when
There
it comes
wasn't
to
enough. There
dosages,
wasn't enough space on LinkedIn to include that. I take it. So
well, like, give me time, man. I'm studying for my wine certification right now, so hopefully I have that by the end of the year. No, when it comes to getting the dosage right on those, what they didn't really realize early on, and now the industry's kind of glommed onto, is that people use THC beverages the same way they use a beer. And so they want to be able to have the similar experience and rate of consumption, have several of them in a night. They're not
Mhm.
looking for something like a gummy where you pop one and you're done, or you're smoking a blunt, maybe blunt and a half, and then you're done. Not now they're trying to give people that a sessionable experience, just like they would be getting off of alcohol, but with a different sort of experience, a different sort of high. And I think now that it's starting to tailor those use cases and really understand their customer better, it's a much more viable space than it has been in the
Yeah.
past, and that's exciting to see. It's one of those things that could be seen as a threat for the industry, the beer industry, that is, or it could be seen as an opportunity. It could be seen as something wonderful from the consumer side. So I think at the end of the day, the only constants change, and we're a lot better as an industry when we're changing alongside of it and being as
Mhm.
adaptable and nimble as we were when Ken Grossman was brewing us here in Nevada out of converted dairy tanks. We've always been nimble, we've always been adaptable, and that's when we're at our best. And I feel like right now some of the doom and gloom is purely built around the fact that we got real comfortable growing at breakneck speeds for a couple of years there and thought
Yeah.
that we discovered the secret. But there was never a secret. The secret was always going to change, and we need to change alongside that. And I think there's something beautiful to
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I think it's all about adapting, and it's funny. Like, occasionally I'll get the question about that. If I think the bubble may have popped and things like that. And I was watching one of the YouTube videos. Somebody had posted a video out there talking about craft beer, thinking it was over. And I'm like, you're kidding me? Like, because you see last year you had a net of 300 breweries less than the first time down. Most you're seeing in a lot of these brewery spots, if one brewery closes, another brewery pretty much jumps right in. Oh, and so you're not really losing as much as you think you might be losing. I think it's like part of the optics of just that number being out there. But think about this: like back in 1983, there were only 300 in the country anyway.
Mm-hmm. You're 100% right, man. Like,
yeah.
people, and this is an anecdote I've used this week on things that I've done on. I use it pretty frequently. Is I go to any dive bar in Cincinnati, any dive bar here in the Charlotte area, any dive bar pretty much anywhere in America these days. Hell, practically the whole world. They're going to have 2, 3, maybe 4 craft beer options. Now they might be, owned by InBev, not as much anymore, but they might be bigger brands or national brands. But that's new. Like,
Yeah.
if the goal of our entire industry was to make it easier to get good beer, then we did it. We won.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to figure out how to run sustainable businesses in an environment where we've become mainstream. And it's the thing that happens in any niche industry as it works its way up the adoption curve and it starts reaching a more general audience. You got a choice. You can double down on your most dedicated customers, or
Mm-hmm.
you can go ahead and start focusing on the more general public and realize that they're just never going to care as much about beer as you or I do. And that's okay. Not everybody needs to be a cicerone, because we exist as cicerones to be able to help people still enjoy beer without having to know everything about it. And it's not that those people aren't passionate. They might be passionate about Doctor Who, or they might be passionate about anime, they might be passionate about football. Those are things that they care as much as we care about this, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't still be able to partake in and enjoy this world. It's just contingent on us to realize that and help guide them through that journey. And I've seen industries that have doubled down on their diehards. They tend not to do well. I've seen ones that tend to embrace that more mainstream affectation and audience, and they tend to be a lot more successful, even if there's some growing pains of just weeding out some of the small businesses that weren't designed to have good business fundamentals and work within that environment. And that's not to diminish how tough it is when breweries close. It sucks. I know everybody in this industry. I feel it, man. It sucks every time I hear about a friend of mine having to close their brewery, but we're closing them at a lot lower rate than traditional bars and restaurants and dry cleaners and every other type of small business out there. We're still doing pretty good. And, a level of churn, that's a healthy thing. At the end of the day, that's helping us get a more sustainable business. And that means that we can get to a point where we have better paid employees and owners who actually can pay themselves instead of treating this like an expensive hobby. And we're able to hopefully one day at some of the mid-size and larger ones provide benefits. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. And that's without getting into all the markets we haven't even tapped yet.
Oh yeah. Well, let me get this here real quick. 'Cause I always say when you're live, it's about the folks watching and stuff too. And I always want to be interactive. That's the fun thing of why I like to do these live. So shout out to Tater in the house as well. Shout out to Vanessa in the house. Shout out to Whiskey Woman in the house. And any questions you have, make sure you post them in there in the comments. And up top, pinned in the comments, you'll see the website there for Aaron as well. Now, I think on your website, it may not be fully up to speed right now, but I do have some just still good stuff out there. Don't get me wrong, but I just noticed like some stuff was definitely a little dated.
Oh yeah, man. It's better than most some of what my days look like, and even trying to keep that website updated is its own challenge. So the best way to get a hold of me, ironically, of all the stupid ass places, is on Facebook. My Facebook over the years has kind of turned into AP Newswire for the beer industry. All I do, and I get way more credit for this than I deserve. All I do is go around clicking the share button on stuff and adding a little bit of commentary and insight from time to time. But it's gotten to the point where I have a pretty significant following, and that's actually how most people discover me through there. So if you go on Facebook, it's just /Ale Chaser, ALECHASER. And that whole thing started literally just because my wife, I would tell her all about all the stuff I was reading about the industry, all the things I kept hearing about. And she stopped me one day and said, babe, I love you. I really don't give a shit. Please tell your friends on the internet. And that's what I started doing. And boy, that has been the kickboard from which I've been able to leap into a incredibly fulfilling and amazing career that has been more than I ever could have hoped for.
You got to love the wives, right? I mean, I think your wife would get along good with my wife because that's how I started this. Is basically you need to go get a YouTube channel, and I'm like, why would I want to get a YouTube channel? She's like, all you do is talk about beer all the time, and you could do a YouTube channel. People would like to learn about beer, and I'm like, and and I'll talk about this more because Monday night I will have the 10-year anniversary show that'll be going up.
Nice, congratulations, man.
Thank you. My feeling in the beginning was, why would I want to watch somebody else talk about a beer if I don't have a beer, right? And then she's like, no, people want to learn about it because she was big into YouTube like years ago and watching stuff. And like, there's different things you can share. So really, her pushing me into it is how I ended up where I'm at now. And then with my background, like you, I also got journalism background and stuff too. So I got the blog, I got I got the podcasting and all these other different things that are out there. She's like, go tell your story to other people. Like, so.
Well, thank you to tolerant wives who are tired of our shit, because that is
cheers to the tolerant wives. Yeah.
Thank you to the women much smarter and more capable than us who put up with all of this.
Yeah. And let me do this here then, because what I'll do.
Well, in 10 years, man, that is a heck of a milestone. So if you're in the comments, man, show some love to this man. 10 years, that is incredible.
In YouTube years, that is like what, like 5 lifespans or something.
That's like E-Bombs World era, man. Like we are going back to the before times. We are going back to Candy Mountain, and this is the world. And oh man, yeah, you were early.
I mean, I've seen him come and go in some regards, so it's kind of like, and I'm still here. Like, yeah, okay. So,
oh, here's the 50 more. JV's Hangout. That is a very optimistic outlook of
yeah,
our collective lifespans, given what we drink.
Thanks. Good old pal JV. And JV, back in the day, JV actually was in doing a lot of the beer and stuff like that and everything. But now he's kind of shifted his channel. He does more of a entertainment type fix, which is great too. So it's all finding what works for you and having the fun and doing. That's what it's all about. But speaking of JV, so it's funny because we're going to get into your background here as well now, what you're doing, because we're getting to Beer 30 and the fifth ingredient, which is actually working with tech. So JV kind of jumped ahead. He might be around here somewhere looking at my notes and stuff, because I did have some stuff on there about AI to ask as well. But he was asking how long AI you think before they can create a great brew. Now, we do know some breweries have tooled around and gave AI let it pick a recipe and they've brewed what AI has done. But do you see AI getting more intertwined in the stuff that you're working with some of the breweries?
So I know AI is a hot topic right now, and I know it's controversial. One, I've got a friend out there who, if she's watching this right now, I know she's about to have very strong feelings on everything I'm about to say. But here's the thing about AI. It's not about AI art and hallucinations and phantom sixth fingers on random pictures that you did of Dolly Parton wearing a leather bikini fighting a creature from Warhammer 40K that you came up with. No, it's not about any of that. See, the thing about AI is to intellectual tasks what the steam engine was to physical ones. So, prior to the steam engine, all we really had was our Mark I muscles, which for me, I used to be a little bigger than they are today. Animal power, it was all brute force. And what the steam engine did was allowed people who might not have those gifts, whether just smaller people who might have disabilities or just smaller frame in general, women as a part of the manufacturing workforce, to do work that previously only the largest people among us with the largest muscle mass were able to really do.
Right.
And more importantly, for simple, repeatable tasks, be able to do those at a much higher rate with much higher accuracy than a person would be able to do. But one important thing that we got to keep in mind is that didn't obsolete humans on the manufacturing line. You still need people to conceptualize. You still need people to be able to monitor, to make those things run, to provide that element of control and direction to this powerful tool. And that's a lot of what AI actually does. AI allows us to take a lot of those things that did require, a pretty quick brain, but not necessarily something truly novel or creative, just something able to really find solutions and connections and patterns quickly. And it's making it so that people who not even just don't have that, I don't mean to diminish anybody who's using it as a tool, but even people who have that, but not within a particular specialty, to be able to really use that as a force multiplier. And right now, we're still figuring out what a real use case looks like. I understand why it's scary to people. And I, for one, welcome our AI overlords if they are listening. So Skynet, if you become self-aware, I'm on your team. But honestly, there's been tons of studies that show that the lowest performers have a tendency to get more out of AI than the top performers. It tends to let humans focus on the things that only humans can do. And that's one of the reasons I'm not worried about AI replacing brewers, because only a brewer is going to be able to take all these elements and create something truly new, even if AI is able to synthesize things that are novel and worth exploring. Only humans going to be able to figure out how to apply those things, how to control for those things, how to understand the nuance to this many to many problem that is creating and selling things to an audience. And having a tool like AI that's able to take some of the load off, so that an underpaid brewer might be able to become an appropriately paid brewer, because there's not so much overhead just moving stuff from point A to point B. Yeah, there will be some jobs that might not exist anymore. I think there will be other jobs that exist that don't exist now, and I think that the only thing that we know is that the genie is out of that bottle, and the best thing that we can do is find sustainable, both ecologically and financially, for greater society, ways of leveraging this tool, because it is a powerful tool. And in some ways, we're more on the cusp of an industrial revolution kind of phenomenon than we are anything else. And it's hard to see that until you're on the other side of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's kind of looking at it as either as an instrument rather than as competition, right? It's kind of like it's a tool. It's like we had job in any industry, we've had stuff disappear after a point. It's like we didn't have to have people out there physically bulldozing a road. We made a bulldozer.
Switchboard operators don't exist anymore.
They don't exist anymore.
We still got phones, and phones are still an important part of our life. And you know what we found? We found other smarter, better ways to use incredibly talented people who otherwise were doing this motion all day. That's not a good allocation of resources. And I would rather us find the best ways to use people in the best ways. And in a lot of cases, that's going to make human capital even more valuable. And lead to even more opportunities for people to be able to contribute well outside of what they might be able to right now.
Right. Yeah, I think in a lot of the regular, maybe like daily type functions, I think that's where some people may get a feel towards AI or something like that, or maybe they're not maybe liking it as much. It was kind of like when you go to a grocery store. Like I know some people don't want to go to the self-checkout line because they feel bad because there's nobody, but the other people that are working there are still getting put in other spots around the store, right? So at the same point, it's your time being saved by going to that self-checkout line. If you got 5 items, why be in line behind 5 other people that have 60 or 70 items, right? So how important is your time? And AI actually allows you to cut down so you can focus on other things, just like you said there.
Yeah, you can see it as taking resources, or you can see it as giving you the freedom to reallocate resources. If human history has shown us one thing, it's usually that's going to be what happens, and usually that makes us a lot more productive as a society as a whole. But the ironic thing is, AI is a tiny part of what we do at Beer 30, which is my day job. But in the tech sector for craft beer in general, we already have automated brew houses. Like that exists. They're prohibitively expensive for a lot of breweries right now. You don't see them often. I've seen some that are garbage. They still require a human to be at the controls and really be the one monitoring. But it does make it a lot more effective and a lot more efficient in an industry that, frankly, we just don't got the margins to give up. And something that lets us make beer more effectively, more efficiently, especially when we're staring 25% tariffs on aluminum and barley, and potential 25% tariffs on imported hops from Europe, which thankfully we got huge domestic supply, or our export markets are completely gone. Beer's going to get a lot more expensive, and I'll take anything that helps keep it reasonable and helps keep us in a sustainable price point, because beer gets more expensive even if everything else does. We're not positioned as that premium luxury product the way that even cheap wine or whiskey feels. We need to be something that's an accessible luxury, something that is a simple luxury, and something that lets people focus on what they really want to focus on, which is being able to relax and enjoy themselves, and not be wondering if they got to take out a second mortgage just so enjoy a 4-pack.
Yeah, right. And glad you mentioned, because we'll touch on that tariff thing. It was like, I prepared the show, kind of going through things, and obviously over the last couple of days, things have changed a little bit. So to get your feedback on a few things too, we'll touch on that, because I know we've had some different things. You and I have both been posting online on stuff. But mention it like Beer 30, because I do want to get in that. So you're heading the thing over there, VP Sales Marketing, and the Beer 30 software. It was great to meet the other guys from the team at the conference as well, when we were out there. Getting in, like, when you get in there, you're getting into these different breweries, and I know you guys had like 300 like data points, I think I was reading on there, and just the stuff you get into, and you really break it down into the data set. So when you're getting into it, like, what are you finding as you're going in? Like, you're like, oh, this you can do this. I know it's managing, pH balance, it's managing the grains, the hop, but it's like you're just like squeezing the numbers. And you're like, you can do this, or you can do that. Like, or you go in like the 2 Bobs? Like, so what do you say you do around here? Like, how do you set it up?
No, because that can be what it feels like. But it's reference. Like I make that reference all the time. My wife has a corporate job, as anyone in beer. Their spouse has a tendency to have a corporate job so they can have fun things like benefits and time off. But no, absolutely. What we do is we help manage basically everything back at house. So outside the tap room, which is more the point of sale side, what Beer 30 does, and we're not the only one out there. I don't want to turn this into a shill. Brewery management software basically takes a lot of stuff you'd have to be doing manually or on spreadsheets, or frankly just not able to do at all, and puts it into effectively like the cockpit of your business. This is the operations center. Lets you, keep track of your inventory. That means all those 11-pound bags of hops that are coming in, all those bags of grain, all your packaging supplies. That's a lot of stuff, and a lot of small stuff that you got to be able to track, both for understanding where your actual costs are and understand what you have available to brew with, when you're going to need to order next, what you're going to need for your rate of sale. Tracks production, tracks finished goods inventory, actually facilitates sales. It's a CRM. We can sell out to customers. You can run entire self-distro or wholesale right out of it. So effectively, it's just trying to consolidate all that into a tool that's meant to get people in this industry back to what they got into it to do, which is beer and people. Like nobody who's in craft beer is in this because we're going to make a bunch of money. I hate to break it to anybody who's looking at the idea of running a brewery, but you can make a lot more money doing almost literally anything else. About the reason I left the beer industry is because the only thing left the wrestling industry is because the only thing in the world that pays worse than beer is wrestling. But having tools available for you to give you that time back for the things that, to our point on AI earlier, only you as an owner operator, only you as a brewer can do, only you as a human can do. That's really the key. This is a passion industry. It runs on a passion economy, and we want to let people get back to those areas of focus that require that creativity, require that passion, the things that really inspired them to get into this in the first place, and leave the rest of tools that let them run a more effective business. Because no matter how passionate you are, no matter how good the beer is, if you can't keep the lights on, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, true. And getting into things now, because I do really want to get into like just kind of the curiosity. If you're starting to get those type of conversations or those calls coming in, like, how do we start preparing, like, with this whole tariff thing taking place? Like, because now you got to go back into the numbers and you say, well, if we upgrade this here, cut this in, you're going to need to maybe squeeze this back. Like, I'm sure there's some different things taking place. So I know the concern is real. There was a story I posted earlier from one of the Colorado breweries on the Facebook page before we went live tonight. And I told people, this is like the first of the stories you're going to hear. You're going to hear a lot of stories coming up from a lot of people trying to figure out what they actually do there. One of the things I hear, I've heard a couple times, I should say, oh, they could just go to bottling. Like, it's not just easy to switch over to bottling. And then this piece even talks about, like, you have to have a whole bottling thing. And a lot of times for some of the small breweries, bottlings cost more than doing the cans, right? So
yeah, that's so a couple things there. And I want to say as well right at the top, I know that there's going to be a lot of folks watching this who are coming from all sides of the political spectrum. And for one, I want to be very clear. I'm not apolitical. I am very, very loud about my thoughts on all of this and very, very opinionated about it. But even if you're looking at it apolitically, nothing that I'm about to say is political in nature. This is factual. And it's factual for one small industry. Maybe you think that that's not an important or relevant thing, but this isn't debatable. These are things that are going to happen. So one of the first ones is, the switching costs on a lot of the fixes are prohibitively high. Getting a bottling line is a pretty significant capital expense, and they're cheaper than they've ever been. They're still not cheap. And it can be a bigger problem if you've got, for example, grocery store placements and you're doing 4-packs of 60-ounce cans. So similar to this, if you're switching to 6-packs of 12-ounce bottles, that means an entirely new item. That means an entirely new place on the shelf, entirely new pricing, new item forms with your wholesalers. That means you're going to have to get label approval from TTB and state regulatory bodies on those new labels. That's a huge investment. And the chief challenge here isn't even the tariffs. It's the uncertainty. So one of the things I don't think most people who haven't played in the business space long don't realize is that you have to price in uncertainty. So the first go around, that's one of the reasons why we saw the markets bounce back relatively quickly, was tariffs got proposed on Canada and Mexico, and then they got pulled back pretty quick. Everybody said, okay, this was a negotiating tactic, but we're through it. Now we can get back to business as normal. Now that they've gone back on, even if they get pulled back again, the trust that this was a temporary one-off to secure something from the other side is gone. Now the worry is that these could be thrown back at any time, and because of these large switching costs, price stickiness with customers, in certain states you're only allowed to do price changes at certain times of the year. Certain retailers let you do price changes at a certain time of year.
Oh, do we got a little
People
frozen?
have to
There you go.
price in the uncertainty around what is going to happen and assume the worst and charge for the worst, because they don't have the freedom of raising the price in response to the worst. So even if the tariffs go away at this point, you're going to see a lot of folks both within and outside the beer industry really start to ratchet up their prices because they can't afford not to, because it's a question of higher prices now or their business later. And that's something that you don't even need to be sympathetic to understand that this is what they have to do, and it's the only rational approach. So that's the hard thing. There's ways to adapt. There's choices you can make on that CapEx side. It's going to lead to a lot of breweries who are going to be a lot less willing to take on risk. So taproom expansion is going to slow down. In renewed investment and raises in order to fuel larger wholesale distribution are going to slow down. And it is going to mean higher beer prices because our inputs of our four main inputs, minus water, we're talking about, malt that comes from Canada, and there's literally not enough U.S. supply, even if we wanted to switch to it, and that would drive the price up because it'd be putting extra demand on that same supply. Aluminum for cans, which are by far, for craft beer, our largest source of packaged goods. Most of our aluminum comes from the U.S., and we saw the last go around that we're going to see that Midwest premium go up the moment that those tariffs kick in, which they have. Prices go up. American aluminum goes up similarly. Prices go up. We're going to see a slowdown in shipping. So any sort of large-scale distribution, somebody who used to run what was basically a logistics company for the industry and whose wife works in overland logistics, price of chassis, price of box trucks are going to skyrocket, especially any refrigerated trucks. So that's unavoidable. And we literally do not have the domestic capacity to create those at the rate we need to. And we use imported steel to make them. So the cost even of those raw materials are going to go up. Hops are about the only thing we got adequate, actually oversupplied domestic supply for. But outside of that, almost everything else is going to see a pretty appreciable raise in its total cost and total impact. So things are going to get more expensive. There's not really a way around it. And these things aren't being paid by anybody other than us as U.S. consumers. And those are all factual statements. How you feel about them, whether or not you think they're worthwhile, that's up to you. But that is what's happening.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I just did the video I released this morning on a short little video about the overview of tariffs and beer being kind of in that target and how it all works. And it wasn't meant to be done in a political type way. It was just basically state how it works. And we know 2018, 1.4 billion hit the beer industry because of the tariffs, right? That's the number that was Kenny came up with by the end of it all. And there's no way around it. It's funny. I had one of the comments I replied to. It was funny. It's like, he's like, I'm not going to get political. I'm just going to say I didn't vote for this. And he moved on to the next one, which is fine. I can understand that, right? Like, there's a lot of people that are getting surprised on things that are happening. And you have people, some of these farmers out there in parts of the country that, we got a thing Tuesday night that I'll be teaming up with Beer in Front, Dave, that will be doing a thing here as well. And we've got people coming in. We've already had like 2 or 3 grain owners that want to get their voice heard on it. We've already got a couple breweries, he said, that want to get their voice heard. I know there's some hop people that want to get their voice. So the Brewer Association has already gotten us data. Mary's got me data from Ohio. It's like people want this stuff out there, right? Because it's just like you don't realize how much it's going to impact if you're a beer drinker. You just want to be aware of it. Again, it's not being whatever, but this is the situation we're in.
And most people aren't economists. Most people, it's similar to what we were talking about with beer earlier. I don't expect most people to care about macroeconomics. I don't think most people should care that much about macroeconomics. But when you get into these things that are going to have a very real impact on your personal microeconomics, these are things that are important for people to understand. And I think anything that is taking that step of trying to explain to people what's actually happening, and in a lot of cases is more effective if you divorce it from the political side. Let's just address the facts. And I'll let you draw your own conclusion, but let's stick to the stuff that at least we can agree is happening. Now, tell me how you feel about it, because you might have thought that something else was happening or was supposed to happen, or that the structure of this was different. And I think it's important for people to know, this is beer. At the end of the day, beer's, even though we're an essential business during COVID, we're non-essential. We're a luxury product. We're something that more should probably have a little bit less of. But at the end of the day, if you care about beer, if this is something you're passionate about, and I assume if you're watching a YouTube show with a couple of talking heads just running their mouth while drinking beer, you probably care a little about it. These are things that you really do need to consider, because this applies to a whole lot of industries well beyond us. And this is going to have a deleterious effect on a lot of folks well beyond just those of us making, selling, and supporting the selling of beer.
Oh yeah, I mean, I already saw like the Coke CEO came out already talking about prices going to go up for like your Cokes. Pepsi's going to be the same thing. You like that guacamole? Pay a little bit more. Like it's going to be, there's different stuff that's going to be affected that may be a part of it. I've taken pictures numerous times on my Facebook page. I'll post out there, a decision has been made, and it'll be like these eggs next in the beer area. Like someone put eggs down and got the beer. Now it's going to probably be eggs and milk and bread, because someone decided I'll just get the beer instead.
I ain't gonna lie, I did buy a 6-pack of Guinness Extra Stout the other day because it's St. Patty's season, and I left the eggs behind. So I'm part of the problem. I might have a problem. I hope my doctor's not watching. Hi, doc.
But it's going to be interesting to see it. And like I said, I got to think that that's something that has to come into play for what you're doing there, like you mentioned. And there's breweries that are concerned, because you got to work those in. You got to work in the worst case scenario type situations and stuff too, and kind of have that space, so to speak.
Well, and honestly, one of the best things that breweries can do on their end is really invest in tools. Brewery management software. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but that is one of the best ways to find efficiencies, both in your production as well as in your sales process. I've seen a lot of breweries that are completely upside down on their cost of goods. They don't even realize they're losing money when they're selling it. But even outside that, point of sale systems, consultants who can help accelerate areas of your business you just don't have expertise in. Making investments in the parts of your business that help you make or retain money. That's what we're all here to do, because at the end of the day, if there's no brewing industry, there's surely no brewery software industry. And the success of this industry is our success. So I try to explain to owners, don't turtle up, don't become, don't get that scarcity mentality. See this as an opportunity to really make the investments back in your business you probably already should have. Right. Find those efficiencies, save yourself some money on what you're already doing, and find new opportunities that you may not have even realized that you had. But you're wearing a million hats. There's always going to be more stuff that needs done in the brewery than you're ever going to have time to do it. So anything that you can invest in that saves you time and lets you get back to the things that are going to have a real bottom line impact on your business, that are actually going to help you keep those lights on, keep those doors open, keep your team employed, keep you employed. And you probably have an SBA loan, so that's also keeping your house around you. That is absolutely critical. And I wish more breweries would do that instead of becoming so, I don't even want to say risk averse, because this is the opposite, risk averse, but investment averse, that they literally just kind of turtle in and hope that the status quo of what they're already doing will be enough to sustain them through an industry that's rapidly changing around them. And again, nimbleness, speed, quickness, agility, adaptability, that's the advantage you have being a small company. So use it.
Yeah, and that kind of goes to like when we were at the Ohio conference and watching Dr. J and watching Kate speak on stuff too, like having that ability. Like if you're not looking at RTDs, or you're not looking at some of the NA type stuff and things along those lines, you may be missing out on those opportunities, because you have to adapt. And like Dr. J said, with her analogy, I used to be good for 6 pints a week. I would go in somewhere, but if I'm only coming in for 2, that means you need 2 other people to get to, right? So you still need that same number in the end. So you got to be able to adapt and draw other people in. And sometimes it might be other products, it might be other things you got to do to be able to do that. And some people I know some people get stuck in their ways, like you're saying, they're trying to, we're just going to do this and do that. Okay, well, you could be one of the last of the dinosaurs too if you do that, right? If you're not evolving. Got to differentiate, you got to evolve. And, even if it's not other products, we're hospitality businesses now, man. Like you got to be willing to have a value prop that's larger than we make beer. Because again, good beer is easy to get.
Good beer is something that I could be drinking right here in the comfort of my own home. Give me a reason to come out to your space. Give me a reason to go looking for you. Give me a reason to find you if you're not on grocery store shelves. Someplace that's less convenient for me. Make me look. Make me care. And I would love to see more breweries running their businesses like businesses instead of very expensive hobbies, because this is a very expensive hobby. And if all you wanted to do is make great beer, you could have stayed a home brewer. You got into this to sell great beer, and that's a very different approach, very different phenomenon. So, it's hard to double down on existing customers, because at the end of the day, we tend to drift. The same thing that make us such good beer customers make us terrible beer customers. If you're watching this right now, drop in the comments right now what you enjoy drinking, because I bet a lot of you got into this, started with craft beer, and I bet that for a lot of you now, you drink craft beer, probably bourbon, might drink cider, probably drink wine, probably have the occasional THC beverage, and oh my God, you're the problem. We're the problem. The same things that made us want to try out fruited sours and throwing a whole Hostess cupcakes into a stout are the same shit that makes us want to look elsewhere and keep adventuring. That's why I got so many certifications, because I'm the problem. So if we double down on people like you, Rod, people like me, people like the people watching this damn podcast, what we're going to do is watch us atrophy and slowly spiral into irrelevance. So the only way to stay relevant is realize that, Bart Watson, president and CEO of the Brewers Association, his words, customers are omnibulous now. That's a really pretentious way of saying they drink across categories. They drink everything. And that can be seen as a disadvantage, or that can be seen as a beautiful thing and an expansion of the landscape of beverage. But it's important to realize at the end of the day that if you got the equipment to make beer, you can make a whole lot of stuff. You are already overqualified and overprepared to be able to make wine and cider and mead and seltzers and THC beverages and coffee. And, if anything, we as an industry got a leg up. And that doesn't mean that Kolsch has to disappear. That doesn't mean that Belgian strong ales have to disappear. It doesn't mean that American pale ales, God forbid, have to disappear. It just means that now we're able to do a whole lot more, reach an even broader audience. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Oh, definitely. And, the one thing there about the stuff happening, and it was an interesting point, because I didn't think about it before, but Dave had brought up, because one of the people at the BA, when she was providing details for the stuff we're going to be talking about, made mention of how breweries by your state, when you have to get labels, you have to go in and get the labels done. Well, some of these states, a lot of people that are cutting the labels are getting cut out of jobs too. So that could cause a bottleneck for a lot of breweries too. You want to bring out that new porter, that new stout, you need a new label, like, it's going to be 3 or 4 months.
And they were understaffed already, man.
Yeah.
TTB's label approval department has been historically famously understaffed for decades now. Like, they literally cannot approve. It's easy to forget. It feels like craft beer has been around forever, man. Like, there weren't that many breweries that long ago, and most of them weren't doing distribution. And now you have such volume that God bless the people at the TTB. As frustrated as we as an industry may get with them sometimes, they are so overworked and underpaid. And them having folks lose their jobs, them having folks having to do the work of 3 or 4 people, this stretches well beyond TTB, well beyond beer concerns. But that lack of state capacity, that is going to slow down a whole industry. That's going to slow down. Going to make it that much harder to get new novel beers anywhere other than across your bar at your tap room. And that's going to make it challenge as beer drinkers. Our choices are going to go down as our prices go up, and that's not the direction we were hoping this would go.
No, and some of those breweries that you kind of walk in, like Cincinnati. So, and I'm just saying as an example, it's not something they're actually doing over there that I'm aware of, but I'm around the corner from Mantry, right? So I go into Mantry.
Shout out to Mantry, great spot.
Shout out my buddy Mike over there and stuff that they're doing. They're doing some great stuff. But if I go over there, I think they've got like 20 taps usually on stuff with things they're doing for Mantry, and then they have their guest spots afterwards, right? But they could be one of those breweries that it's like, hey, we can't get this type of hop in, we can't get this type of malt in, so okay, we're not gonna be doing this, and this, and you walk in next time and it's only 10 taps or 15 or whatever. You're like, yeah, it was only just a few less, right? But all that stuff starts to add up after a point, right? It's kind of like all that's because when it's not like you're going to go in and just make that beer now and just have it there. I mean, you got to plan stuff out for how you want to do it, how you rotate the batch and stuff out. And if you're like, I can't get the New Zealand hops because New Zealand hops are going to be this amount now, so we're going to not make that New Zealand IPA, or I can't get the malt that I need over here because I want to have a certain malt for this type of brew that we're doing. We can't do that. It's all this stuff.
I hope that folks really like Citra, because you're about to see nothing but Citra. Yeah, Galaxy, bye.
Was that Rick and Morty Citra? Like instead of doing a peanut butter and jelly.
Nelson Sullivan, bye. Zotz, bye. Zotz is already getting more expensive. Oh yeah, no, it's going to be a very interesting time, and I mean that in the most, I don't know, sardonic way possible. But industry will adapt. That's what we're good at. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a lot of folks, but at the end of the day, that really is our key as a whole group and as a whole category. And it's something that I think if we have lost anything, because I hope people have picked up at this point the opposite of doom and gloom on the state of the industry right now. Quite the opposite. I think there's a lot of optimism to be had if we're willing to be honest about things and then not indulge our more self-defeating impulses. But I think one thing that we have lost, and part of why we lost it was we saw that line just going up so fast for so long, has been that willingness to adapt and to be the cockroach. Nothing's gonna kill us, man. Like beer's been here a long time. We are passionate about this. We're in this for a reason. And if that means that we have to figure out a new paradigm and we have to figure things out the same way people had to do in 2014, 2015, same way they had to do in 2010, 2011, same way they had to do in 2004, same way they had to do in 1997, same way they had to do in 1991, same way they had to do in 1969, same way they had to do in 1969 and 79 and everything in between. Like, this is what we're good at.
Yeah.
We're going to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, 5,000 BC. So some form of beer has been around. I mean, we went through Prohibition. Well, we didn't because we weren't born yet, but ancestors of ours went through Prohibition, right? And survive that and everything, and I always come back because I don't know if like people that watch the show, one of my favorite shows actually watching the weekends. It's kind of like that what do you call like that guilty pleasure or like that, watching the Food That Built America. And I was astonished when they showed the one on Pabst Blue Ribbon, how during Prohibition, to the Guinness time, to the during Prohibition, Pabst Blue Ribbon made cheese. They made cheese to stay alive because everything was down, the Prohibition, they couldn't do anything. They tried to fight, they couldn't. Then, and then coming back, they sold the cheese they made, which was the velvety gold cheese we know from Kraft. They sold it to Kraft. Mm-hmm. Their cheese was actually better than Kraft back then. So when they got back out, Kraft bought it. And that's why you have like that Kraft mac and cheese that people love today still.
Adaptation, man.
Yes.
There are companies selling malt for use in like milkshakes and cooking. My favorite was the wine industry. They were freaking hysterical. And I played in the wine industry for a while. I helped play in the beer education track for SomCon, which is a gathering of sommeliers in San Diego every year. The wine industry, a lot of them started making basically like bricks of dehydrated grape must that they would put instructions on there to definitely do not steep this in water to rehydrate and then leave outside for yeast to infect and then leave it at X temperatures. That way it would convert to alcohol, because that would be illegal. Definitely don't do that. And they were just selling this to people, and that was completely illegal. And of course, everybody was doing home winemaking because wine is making great wine is very, very hard. Making passable wine is actually way easier than making passable beer. It's art rather than science, and I don't mean that as a diminishment to anybody in the wine industry. I think it's extremely hard to make extremely good wine, but it is. It's a lot more like cooking versus baking, which is what beer is. And so, a lot of folks just making wine at home, and it's like that level of creativity, that level of adaptation. A lot of breweries were making ice cream, right? Because brew house equipment can repurpose as dairy equipment. I don't want to see us ever have to deal with that again.
No.
Never want to see us go back to Prohibition. Thank God I wasn't alive through there. I'm a straight white dude, and even I don't want to go back to them.
Yeah.
But I sure as hell wish that we would remember those roots and remember that skill set, because that's where all of this came from, both back then and far, far, far more recently. And that's really going to be the skill set that sees us as an industry through not just the tariffs, not just through some of the economic changes, some of the structural changes that we have coming, but also just through our own success. We did it, guys. Now let's figure out how to overcome the entropy of victory and sustain this and become more successful far into the future when my 6-year-old and my 3-year-old are old enough to either be consumers or, God forbid, want to do this for a living.
Well, they're getting a skill set from seeing you do it now, so yeah.
They really shouldn't. Our 3-year-old's obsessed with anything that's stainless. So like commercial kitchens, brew houses, exposed ductwork at like buildings and stuff. Like ever since she was like a year old, she's just obsessed with it. I hope to God that child's an HVAC technician. Please make Daddy proud by getting something stable like a tray.
I don't know. By the time she grows up, it might be AI doing stuff.
Hey, that might be all right. I'm
that might be all right.
She takes after her mom on that.
So. She may create the AI machinery, following you in the tech stuff, and create something like that.
Oh, that or she's going to wind up being John Connor, in which case, see you on the other side. Sweet.
But how long have you been doing things in beer? Like how long? Because I know the stats and stuff like that's like reading the back of a Topps. If we had Topps beer trading cards, that would have been like the back of the stuff I was reading earlier. But how long have you been in beer?
About a decade. It's been about a decade and a half at this point. I got started just running routes. I did IT briefly when I was younger. When I got laid off, I realized I never wanted to work in an office behind a cubicle again. And, I did a couple of sales jobs. It was still kind of listless. I was selling insurance, office supplies, things like that, and didn't know what I wanted to do. So my girlfriend at the time, now my lovely wife, Chris, she asked me, well, what do you like? I said, I don't know. I like beer. She said, well, do that. And I was like, I never even thought about the fact that this was a viable career. So I give her full credit. She was actually the one who found me my first job in the industry running routes. She found it on Craigslist. So just did door-to-door or retailer-to-retailer sales to start and moved into running a pretty large territory, pretty much everything from New Jersey to Maine at the time. And moved down south, kept doing that for a little bit, moved into sales management, so running sales departments, moved into operations on top of that, and then ran bars and restaurants while also being a full-time brewery consultant. So worked with 75 breweries on 3 continents, not just breweries, cideries, meaderies as well. One coffee client. Nice. I've kept doing some consulting on the side ever since. I've got a couple of clients even now. Shout out to Paracarista Brewing, Mexican brewery. That's brewing out of Pilot Project in Chicago, doing some amazing stuff. They're one of the OGs in Mexico City's brewing scene, now based in the U.S. Adrian's one of the smartest people in the beer scene, and it's been awesome watching him do his thing. Just watching things grow, develop, and from there being part of startups helping to professionalize the industry and really trying to bring some better business models and better, more sustainable business models to it. And now I'm on the tech side, helping people actually physically run their business better and hopefully have the insights and the information that they need to do all this. That plus a bunch of speaking engagements, that plus the American Craft Beer Hall of Fame, and it's always something.
A little bit of golf here and there when I can.
Yeah, I definitely don't golf. I joke that I'm a terrible brewer. I am way worse at golf than the man.
Now, the only thing you really haven't done right is brew beer. Like you haven't brewed beer from what I was reading earlier, but
2 commercial batches, and I will never do a third. No one wants to do a third. Least of all, people have to drink the shit. Yes, I don't even homebrew. I make wine and cider at home. I love to cook. To cook. It's probably my single biggest hobby outside of the beer industry, outside the beverage industry. But beer is baking. I made the comment earlier. It is, you got to get that stuff down to exactly there. There's very little fudge factor, but also very little room for playing around with that detail work unless you're really getting into the nitty-gritty and iterating off of success. Wine and cider and mead are a lot more art. They're a lot more about having that flexibility to be more creative in the process, to coach the process through the process, and to let it speak back to you as much as you're speaking to it. My brain works a lot better for cooking than it does baking, and it works a lot better for winemaking than it does brewing. But both of them are incredible, and I have the deepest, most utmost respect for every cider maker, every mead maker, every brewer, every coffee roaster that's out there, because people don't have an appreciation for how you take this agricultural product and turn it into something that yes, is good, but is also consistent and is being done at the kind of price point and inputs that you need it to just to be able to stay afloat. And that's the big difference between a good brewer and a great brewer. A good brewer can make great beer. A great brewer can make great beer consistently and at a much more reasonable price point.
Yeah.
And I think that's an underappreciated talent, one that I'd like to see earn a lot more praise.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I always thought about because I've made home brewing batches before, but I was thinking of beer as cooking. But the way you broke that down there, yeah, I mean, kind of the beer being more the bacon and stuff where you have to really sort of off. And I can remember like when I was a kid and your grandmother, you're making a cake in the oven, right? And it'd be like, don't make too much, like you're gonna make the cake like fall down or whatever.
Yep.
Like so it was just there is that much more you have to pay attention to in that regard.
Oh, it is. Is very exacting.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. It makes sense. Like you're making wine, you got juice and yeast, and that is the recipe. When you're talking about beer, you're talking about water, and then you are having to actually sacrifice the starches inside of the malt, which is its own complex chemical process. Then you have to isomerize the acids inside of the hops themselves, and that's not getting into all the volatiles that you can get out of those hops, whether in the kettle or through the dry hopping process. Then you have the yeast that finally goes to work on this much more complicated melange of different chemicals and different constituent components. Even the water chemistry, the salts and the ions that are in the water can have a huge impact on the finished product. So it's an extremely complicated process, an extremely complex beverage. It's one of the reasons why I love it, and I've never fallen out of love with it. And I think every one of the beverage categories has plenty to offer in similar regards, but there's absolutely no doubt that beer is the most complicated to make stepwise and the most complex as far as the finished good. Just everything that's in there is so many more inputs and so much more going on than you have in literally anything else.
Nice. I know you cracked open your other one there, so I'm going to crack open this one. This is the all black everything breakfast stout. So this was actually done with Esoteric and Almatic. I don't know if you know Esoteric out of Cincinnati.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Brian, actually, when they initially started their investment circle to get built up, I actually went to a couple of their meetings and got a chance to meet Brian and Marvin, who was their partner at the time. Marvin has moved to a different thing there he's doing, and then Almatic. So they got together and made a nice little breakfast stout. So that was going to be my second one here.
Not something you see as often as you used to during Founders' heyday before, well, we all stopped drinking Founders for completely
I know you're teeing me up for something there.
I don't want to be the one to say it on the podcast with one of the longest running black voices in here, but by the same token, it's been a minute since I bought any all day.
Yeah. It's so funny because at the Ohio conference, I was talking to one of the other people that were there, and we were talking about some of the stuff there, and it was just the way that was all just handled and bungled. I'm like, from jump, they just screwed that up right from the beginning on how to handle. Like, you could have paid me $10,000. I'd have walked in and had it all solved in like 15, 20 minutes on what they needed.
Rod, I would have done it for nothing.
Yeah. The man's always undercutting me. No.
but you're 100% right. Like, this
they doubled down on ignorance. Like, you doubled down on it. Like,
well, and there's so many folks who are legitimately good folks who work there, and I know enough people on the inside to know that things have gotten a lot better. But here's one of the problems: we got 10,000 breweries in the U.S. I'm not a fan of the concept of canceling someone, not because I don't think that you should discontinue buying from somebody or discontinue associating with somebody if they've done something to deserve it. I think that's valid. I do think we've gotten as a society probably a little too quick off the jump to treat everything as a litmus test. But there's 10,000 breweries. It's not a sacrifice to stop buying from one. So if you're going to do something pretty egregious and then follow up by screwing up everything on how you're handling it and giving people absolutely no confidence that things are going to get better, I don't blame anybody for saying, I've got a lot of options out there, man, and I don't have to wonder. I don't have to be curious if things have gotten better at any of these others. So I completely understand where people are at with that. For my part, I haven't bought anything from them in quite a while. Although I do got a like a 8-year-old CBS sitting in my fridge right now.
Yeah.
I just haven't found an occasion to crack it open. I already paid for it. Things
Well,
fun.
yeah, it's funny because when I stopped,
Beer's still good. Shit.
when I stopped drinking them and stuff, like I'd had some friends like ask me like, oh, I got this one here. Like, should I pour it out? Should I dump it? Or I'm like, you paid for it. Why? Like that's like the guys that get mad at LeBron James leaving Cleveland and burn New Jersey. Then he comes back and they're going to buy New Jersey again because he's back now. Like, like it's yours.
Oh my God! Yeah, you already paid for it, man. Enjoy it. The beer isn't bad. Like that was never the problem. Like the whole case we're making is the beer being good isn't enough to offset, man. Like drink the beer. It's fine.
Yeah, you already got the beer. It's kind of like it's there, and it's one of those things. And I was a fan of drinking their beers. I used to get all their stuff and dug right into it. But then after a point, like you said, there's so many things that are out there now. It's like I don't have to go back and get their stuff. And it's kind of the thing that in my mind hurt them because there's a lot of groups out there, like say some of the black craft beer drinking groups, and it's just like you lost that thing. Even though you try to say well things are better, you try to done stuff, and it's kind of like you've lost them already out of like the pool to come back. And then it's like I had someone that said something like I think it was last year about something leaving. I looked, well, the guy that was the president stepped down, but then he was on the board. I'm like, he didn't really go any. Like, no, that's not fixing the problem. And I think the thing that really hurt him was when the diversity chief kind of blew him out the water when she put that letter out there on social media. It was just like, yeah, pretty much that's it, pretty much done. Yep. But you look at their situation versus how, and it wasn't a racial one that happened with Boulevard, but it was still a bad issue, and how that was actually handled. Totally different thing. Got to some people that were working there, got in front of it, got support, and it's just like there was so much better way to actually handle that actually happened there. So,
yeah, I feel like crisis management's an underrated skill within businesses, and it can be so easy to see it as something. Well, we don't need it because we're never going to screw up. You're going to screw up. And the flip side of it is, well, if we screwed up, the whole thing is about just protect us and don't admit anything. And it's like that's probably going to backfire on you. Like. I'd rather not see it happen in the first place, but if it's going to happen, let's go ahead and at least, hey, we're taking it seriously. We're acknowledging the fact of this. We want to make it better. And then, I feel like as a society, we need to do a better job of acknowledging that effort towards progress. But if it's something that you should have seen the whole time and you just mad you got caught, that helps violate the trust that makes that possible. And, if we've got a bunch of companies that take pretty significant efforts to not admit anything or to just say enough to keep themselves out of trouble, that also violates some of that trust in the ones that are trying to make positive progress. So we as a species, we're pretty good at fucking up. It's kind of our whole thing. We've managed to fall up for the last 50,000 years. But at the end of the day, be earnest, be honest, create a dialogue and listen, because you're gonna screw up. The best thing that you can do is, don't make it worse and take it seriously, because, just like interactions between people, you might not think that you did anything harmful or hurtful. If someone's telling you that they felt harmed or hurt by your actions, it's not as important on whether or not you feel like that's justified. They're telling you how it felt. So try to find a way to remediate that and remediate that in a way that's productive for everybody. Helps you grow as a person, helps them grow as a person, and the same thing goes for business. I don't think it has to be nearly as hard as it's made out to be.
No, I don't think so either. See, in fact, it seems like it should be pretty easy, but that's just me.
You think?
There's a lot of things I feel like there should be common sense, so to speak, that just don't happen in the world. But
PR is an underrated skill, I say, as a marketing.
It is. And it's funny. I won't spend much time with it, but it's. I saw your post earlier with James Watt. It's like, really, dude. Like,
I might have been a little part.
Have you not had enough stuff in your life? You need to probably like take a pass and don't even put anything on social media for a while. Like. You're not helping yourself out. Like, there's still some people that can't get over on BrewDog. There's still some people pissed at them. So,
man, and the worst part is there are some really good people over at BrewDog.
Yeah,
James Watt ain't one of them. Man, you're gonna get me on camera saying this. Fuck James Watt. I got nothing else to say. Like he's anybody who may have come out in defense of him, and I do think he fell in the category for a long time of people who did a lot of good for this industry just by virtue of like it's easy to forget that a world without BrewDog would probably look both
totally
different. And
I used to watch their show
worse.
on Esquire years ago when they were in the Esquire, their show. I used to watch that, like when they were going around the country.
Yeah, and I had issues with him, and I had issues with that company for very justified reasons for a long time before this. But like, this is the one where anybody who is defending him on the merits, it's really
tough with the history.
Anybody who has no idea what the hell we're talking to, go to James Watt's Facebook page, and he has a social media. You'll know pretty quick. Again, this isn't a political thing so much as it is just saying
what is wrong with you?
Has been said about that man for a while now. It's pretty spot on, and I really feel bad for a lot of the folks who depend on that paycheck from BrewDog, who are doing some really good work there that often get forgotten about in these conversations. I hope that what we're able to do is find a way to be compassionate and empathetic for them while at the same time not necessarily excusing behavior at the top, because those two things are naturally in tension, but they don't have to be irreconcilable. But yeah, I definitely fired off today. That was, and people who know me online, I do not do that often. That was one that just pushed me over the breaking point. It's been a long day. We've got a lot going on around this house. I've had 3 pipes burst since moving in here in October. I got a lot to juggle right now, man. We know my schedule's messed up, so I just lost it.
You're like, can we get this guy deported? Yeah. If we're deporting people, how do we get him on the plane?
Up there, but yeah, it has been a trial.
Yeah. But here's a fun question for you. Do you remember the first craft beer that flipped the switch for you?
Oh, 100%. I've actually told this story before because I blows my mind more people don't have this set in their head, because this was a journey for me. Mm-hmm. So I grew up actually in a family where this has changed a little in the last literally like 3 or 4 years, but growing up, no one in my whole extended family drank. We are rural farm folk, United Methodists and Baptists, like alcohol's the devil kind of folk. And the running joke I make is my mom told all of her friends I was unemployed for the first 2 years I was in the beer industry, which is true because that was less embarrassing than admitting what I did for a living. Love you, Mom. But the first beer I ever had was when I was working at a little mini mart when I was like 17. Snuck a sip because anytime we'd have a 6-pack that would break, this is before singles were sold widely. At a 6-pack of Miller Genuine Draft broke, so I had to pour the rest out. I was like, I've been told that like demons are going to reach up and grab me, snatch me straight to hell if this touches my lips. I just want to see. So I took one sip, and my first thought was, how much like it, but that's all this was about. Like that's what all the fuss is about. So that was the first beer I ever had. Second beer I ever had, or no, the first beer that showed me that beer could taste different was
Can I just say, because in my mind when you said that, in my mind I thought there was like this Dave Chappelle devil in your head. Gotcha, bitch. But go ahead.
Yeah, it was just Rick James floating up in my head. Just like, oh man! No, the first beer that showed me beer could taste different was actually Blue Moon. That was when I was 19, and that was where I was like, oh, okay, all beer doesn't taste like fizzy piss water like Miller Genuine Draft does. Then it got to the first beer that actually made me realize I could like beer, and that was Magic Hat number 9. For the most part, rest in peace, Magic Hat as a brand. But Alan Newman, I don't think most people realize just how amazing the story of that brand, that company is. If you're in New England, you probably got a little better idea. But Magic Hat number 9, Grapefruit Pale Ale, was an eye opener for me. I was like, oh my god, this is really good. This is something I could enjoy. And it was actually my 21st birthday party. My wife and I, girlfriend at the time, went out to dinner at the nicest restaurant we could afford. I decided to treat myself by getting the most expensive beer on the menu, which it's beer. It still costs borderline nothing in relative terms, but that was Innis and Gunn original. So the original Scotch ale out of Scotland. the moment that touched my lips, my eyes got about that big, and it was pure love. And after that, it's all been downhill. Like there was time to save me before that, but sorry, mama, it's all done. The moment I took that first sip of that
Frank the Tank was born.
Oh, I was corrupted forever. So that is definitely where it began. Was my 21st birthday, and it just after that became a passion, became a love, until it became a job, and then morphed into a career. And now my calling is really just trying to give back to this industry that has given me so much. It's given me purpose. It's given me an education. It's given me more knowledge and skills that I ever hoped to acquire on my own. It's given me friends. It's given me community. It's given me a livelihood, and being able to give back to that at 37. I don't feel like an elder statesman, but in some ways in this industry I am. Being able to contribute to that next generation, being able to contribute to its continuity, to its development, to its growth, to its ability to thrive in a fast changing market, that these days is really what I'm more passionate about more than anything at all. And that's one of the reasons why I'm excited for my work with the Hall, excited for my work in the supplier side, excited for my work on the 3 subcommittees I'm on for the Brewers Association, the 6 state Brewers Guilds that I work with. I
didn't give it all. I didn't give it all earlier, but I had it written down. Like, it's just a lot of stuff out there.
Oh, it's just I don't say no is the freaking problem. Like I should, but no, I'm passionate for it. I love it. This is my hobby. This is my job. This is my life, and I'm proud to be a part of it, and proud to be able to be on places like here, talking to other people who have been doing this for a very long time, been able to watch this develop for a very long time, and just be able to tell people my story, but also hopefully be able to provide some value wherever I can.
Yeah, well, I know that it's obvious, definitely that statesman level. I mean, I think everybody knew you. You were just like I said, walking around with you was like walking around with a rock star. Like, oh, don't mind me. I'm just a bouncer. I'm just security work.
Please, God, don't put that in my head. I don't need this shit.
It was awesome though. So I mean, the respect that you get there, the people love to talk. The chats that we had, me, you, and Eddie, the chats we were having, it's just a great knowledge.
Shout out to Chimichanga.
Yeah, love you, Eddie. We'll have him there at Indy there as well, which would be cool. And talking to Kate last week, just like the sense of being there and the community is like, I don't know if I've been part of another community in any of the other industries I've been in where it's been kind of like that, like just everybody come together, everybody kind of open, everybody like you knew people from on the internet and different stuff, and that you get to meet in person and stuff like that and everything. But it was just like if you didn't even know them, it was like, hey, what are you doing? Like, come over, let's talk, let's chat, let's see what you're about. And it was just like this whole welcoming type thing. And other places, it's like lunch school. First time you go into a new school for lunch, right? And it's like you're a new kid in the cafeteria, you're at the table by yourself, and everybody's like looking over at you, but nobody's coming over anything. This is like everybody's coming over. Hey, mind if I sit with you? What's going on? What do you do? And it's just
that's totally the magical thing about this, man. Like we all came from somewhere else originally. We all got one thing in common, and it is absolutely amazing. And we're in I think 23 countries. Like I said, when I was a consultant, I worked with clients in Europe. I work with clients in Southeast Asia. I work with clients obviously here stateside. I have friends in the African brewing scene, the South American brewing scene, and it's remarkable to me that just having one common point. Now, I wish people outside of the beer industry remember this as well. We all have way more in common than we have different. Way more. It's like powers of differentiate, like exponentially more in common than we have different. And having one just thing that you enjoy that you can start from is such a great way of being able to build a community and being able to build conversation. And it's also one of the great tragedies of our industry that it looks like they printed me out of a freaking copy and paste machine. Like I look like every damn person in this industry. We all look like a hipster Lex Luthor. I mean, come on now. Like I wish we as an industry took more active steps to enact that same level of community that we've very passively been able to build into something that I personally think is invaluable, because we have not touched the Black community, we have not touched the Hispanic community, we have not touched women, the homosexual, the trans community, the entire LGBTQIA plus community. We have done a terrible job of reaching beyond the same demographic that largely built this industry for very mundane reasons. It was access to capital, and it was a niche industry. So we got people into it who happen to be our friends, and most people associate with people in similar cohorts.
Right.
Now we have to make active steps to reach beyond, because the same stuff that makes this so incredible would make this so incredible for people well outside of this demographic already is, as we can see right here. And removing some of those barriers, making proactive steps instead of just saying, well, we're not telling anybody no. It's not good enough, man. Like this is an incredible community. We all benefit from having more folks in it, both from a business standpoint and just as a community. And that's something that hopefully we're able to see a lot more of going forward, because anytime that someone says, we've got too many breweries, we're just out of customers. Ooh, that pisses me off, man. How are we going to talk to 30% of the total population only and act like we managed to cap out on our entire addressable market?
And a shrinking population of some of the ones that are younger that look like that aren't drinking beer. You're shrinking out of that too. So
it's one of those things. I would love to see it. It's not about saying that the Ken Grossmans of the world, the Sam Calagianis of the world, those people had any less to say or do with getting us here. That's one of the reasons I think the hall is so important, is providing inspiration, providing that reflection on the past. But it's also important to look forward to a future that has even more voices and that has even more inspirations, has even more viewpoints, because that's how we continue to get really cool new styles of beers, new business models, new experiences that aren't just doing industrial Edison bulb lighting and raw wood everywhere, because I get it. I love that style too, but it's every damn brewery. That's how we start growing this again, is by making that business case that diversity isn't just there for diversity's sake. It's even there from a very practical, pragmatic, making this whole thing run space. And we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, the Rhine Guys seminar we had was pretty good there as well. I can't remember her name now, so it's slipping my mind. But it's funny, you're drinking a Guinness. When I was in Maryland, I was in Baltimore, one of my high school buddies, they moved down there years ago. Guinness is there in Baltimore now, right? You got the Guinness there, you got him in Chicago, but in Baltimore. So we got together, brought him out there. He was so funny. We were there drinking. He's like, I drank Guinness for the longest time drinking beer. I never even thought to come out to Guinness here. And then when I was getting some of like the small batch IPA stuff, and he's like, he had no idea Guinness even did that kind of stuff. Now this guy's been drinking Guinness for years, but has never really been told the whole story about other things you can actually do. And so the markets that are out there that aren't being tapped are crazy, because it's like, if you only have like the 1% ownership, close to, I think it was full 1% or close to 1% of Black owners in beer, or the lower women owner type shit, what are you not putting out there where you're missing? Or the Asian owner. I had Mad River on a couple of years ago, first Native American brewery out there from California. How many people are not being targeted in other areas? And so it's kind of like you're missing opportunities if you're just kind of just focus in. But I think some breweries don't know how to focus out either.
Yeah, I think there's one thing to find your community and find your niche, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I preach differentiation on a lot of things, but I think a lot of us draw those lines a little too narrow, and I think if we know one thing's universal, it's this. We've been craving alcohol since we were a bunch of monkeys swinging in trees, eating overly ripened, partially fermented fruit. We were tailor-made to have a tolerance for and an interest in alcohol, which again, my family loves to hear me go on this rant. But,
but they're praying for you right now.
Oh, they are. Love you, Mom. Like that. Actually, my dad drinks bourbon now, so he came up to the dark side. But that is one of the things that that's a universal experience, and if we can use that as that starting point, then the expressions of it, the room for it. Shout out to the Pink Boots Society for providing support for women and non-binary folks within the beer industry. Shout out to the MB2A for supporting the Black owners, brewers, and people working within the industry, which, by the way, you do not have to be Black to join the MB2A. I urge everybody to sign up and support. They're doing a lot of fantastic work. Kevin Asato is one of the best people in beer, one of the smartest people in beer. The more that we're able to really expand this, that gives us more customers and more opportunity. It gives us more innovation and more voices. That gives us more room to grow as an industry, more room to enjoy as consumers, and frankly, more room to grow as individuals who are working in this space, who can benefit from just knowing a wide range of people with a lot of experience and a lot of things that they've done in life. I'm on my 18th address at 37 years old. I went to 8 schools, K through 12. I've had a very weird life. I was in a movie with Kevin Hart and The Rock. I was a professional wrestler. I paid for the last leg of my honeymoon by stripping in Italy. It's been a weird life, guys. It's those experiences help inform us, and I love meeting people who have had backgrounds of their own to be able to share, and I grow from that.
Now the wrestler thing we knew about, so before we wrap up, we're gonna get that. But Kevin Hart and The Rock. So how did you end up like?
It's not a good movie. Oh, that was the 2016. It came out. Central Intelligence with The Rock and Kevin Hart. That was the one where.
Okay, I remember that. I didn't see that one, but I remember it. Yeah,
it's not good. Don't watch it. They were filming in Boston, and one of my wife's high school best friends was a casting director on it. So I was supposed to be doing like 3 hours of work as just an extra in the background of one scene. They had one spot right at the front, so they needed to fill in just to make it look right. And so they pulled me up to the front. So I became a featured extra. Spent 3 days sitting approximately from me to my computer from Kevin Hart and The Rock, filming this thing, talking to him, hanging out with the Rock and his cousin who was a stunt double at the time after hours. It was ridiculous, an absolutely preposterous experience. In the movie, I'm literally just in the background, but every year I'm prominently enough in the background. I get somebody who winds up sending me some text message or like Facebook Messenger message, like, dude, is that you? Yeah. I had to join the Screen Actors Guild.
I was gonna say, because you get a credit
extra,
now.
You have to. Yeah. I would get royalty checks for like 10 cents. Like, it was ridiculous.
What's that website? Can't remember which one it is. The Guild for movie type stuff, but you go in and type in your name, and you should come up.
IMDb.
Yeah.
You might. I'm curious.
You got to be in there.
Even thought to do that, but I can't imagine. There's no way I'm on there. But
you might be in there. I thought they had to put you in there when you did a movie.
Oh, I am not in there. There we go. So,
you're not in there. Okay.
I'm not in IMDb. You bet your ass I'm about to change that. Actually, that is not true. Me being on Kelly Meyer's How Not to Start a Damn Brewery, where we argued for an hour on the state of the industry in 2023. That one is on IMDb. So I am on there technically.
So you're just missing your credit for being a Central Intelligence. We got to send them an email.
Oh, I'm definitely. You bet I'm sending him an email after this. That's a good idea. In case people haven't picked up, I will. I love attention. So.
So just on the wrestling thing. So and you were in wrestling before you went to beer, but how did you even get into wrestling? Like, what made you decide to? Because I know from watching the other podcasts, it was like down, I think, through the Southeast and some stuff that you were kind of in the circuit. But just because as a kid, like I would watch WCW, Ric Flair, Road Wars, but I never said I want to go out and do that and be a wrestler. But you did. So how did you just
Yeah, so that was actually some of my earliest memories were watching Hulk Hogan with my dad, but it was really when I was a preteen, like 11, 12, I started really getting into it. And that absolutely just became an obsession. And as anybody who's ever as people have gotten me going on beverage on here so far can probably tell, I've got a bit of an obsessive personality with stuff I'm passionate about. So I got really, really into wrestling all through high school. That was basically where all my fresh money went, was just trading tapes of Japanese wrestling. This is back before, streaming was really a thing. Buying and selling tapes, Ring of Honor, the independent circuit, going to shows, told myself that was what I wanted to do because I didn't know anything else I wanted to do for a job. And my graduation present from my parents, they might not support the alcohol, but they did support the wrestling and bought me a pair of wrestling boots as my graduation present from high school, and went to the WWA school down at Atlanta, trained down there, did work around the Southeast for a while before moving up to New England, worked around there for a while as well. But, I did it. It's something that was hugely informative for me. I was a very quiet, reserved kid, and high school, middle school, and it's surprising for a lot of folks who have met me now because I never shut up. A lot of that was having to get out there and get out of my shell and realizing that I was actually an extrovert, just an extrovert who hadn't really acquired the skill of getting up there and applying that in front of people. Because you can have introverted extroverts and you can have extroverted introverts, and that wound up being hugely formative for me. I'm very glad I did it.
Awesome.
I say I don't miss doing it. I actually think I'd kick ass at it now if I did it again. But biggest thing for me was I was always a lot better at running my mouth than I was in the ring. So after doing a few years of in-ring work, I moved on to being a manager. That's basically someone who works the microphone, does all the talking for wrestlers who are good in the ring, but terrible at running their mouth. And
get a little Jimmy Hart.
Exactly, a little Jimmy Hart, a little Bobby Heenan, a little bit Paul Heyman, and did that almost literally until I had to make the choice on nights and weekends. Beer takes up a lot of your nights and weekends, wrestling takes up a lot of your nights and weekends, and again, like it's ridiculous to say to my beer friends, but wrestling pays worse. So that really made the choice for me, and I'd been kind of burned out on it as well. Wrestling has a lot in common with the beer industry. It is a community. It is a subculture. There's an entire language, kayfabe, that they only really speak in the industry. But it's beer if beer was hyper competitive and zero sum. And so all of the lessons I got out of it, the accessibility of the people you idolize, that's one huge lesson is, it's hard to take someone like, Mark Henry, hard to take someone like Ric Flair, hard to take someone like Macho Man Randy Savage seriously when you're all changing in your underwear in the same VFW hall, and you're watching him pop a bunch of pills just to be able to stay upright that night. You realize that even the people who have done truly incredible things and who you admire the hell out of are surprisingly accessible. And in the beer industry, they're even more so. I've been very, very fortunate enough to meet and even become friends, in some cases close friends, with some of the people in this industry who I came into it worshiping. And being humble enough to know what I don't know, but also audacious enough to be willing to just go up and have a conversation with them, like people who put their pants on one leg at a time, like the rest of us, has opened up a lot of doors for me, but it's also allowed me to gain access to that earned wisdom and that earned skill set that they have acquired over the years. And that's been immensely helpful. So to people like Marty Nachel, to people like Mitch Steele, who for all intents and purposes created the modern IPA, people like Deb Carey, people like Sam Calagione, I have nothing but the utmost respect and just gratitude for being willing to share so much with the people who came into this industry after them. And that's what I'm hoping to be able to do as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, it's the openness is definitely something that's pretty huge that, even like when I talked about going to beer festivals for all those years and then getting to know people from the different things. And it's like, you see them again. They're like, hey, we're going to go over here and do this. And we got a special bottle. You want to come join us for a bottle thing? I'm like, oh, shoot. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like, okay. You didn't expect to be, but it's just like, you kind of got built into it. Next thing you know, it's like you're in this beer, I was like fraternity network type thing, but it's kind of cool. It's cool. It's just like a community type thing. And it's kind of like, it's funny when it's like, I still always get surprised when I go to some of the breweries and they recognize who I'm like, like they're like, oh yeah, we watch your thing on YouTube
by now, man.
I don't.
You've been around this a minute, man. Oh, also I want to say shout out to Marcus Baskerville, because Marcus, I know if I don't say something, you're gonna hit me up. So huge credit to Marcus, because he's another one who I've been very, very fortunate enough to become close to, and keep an eye out for what he's got coming too. He's got some really exciting stuff coming down in Texas in the near future, and he might have some fun stuff happening elsewhere if you're willing to keep your eyes open here soon. So
okay, great. Well, hopefully I get a chance to meet Marcus. I haven't met Marcus yet too. So
Marcus is awesome, man. Marcus is awesome. Really great dude, and he's working on his own thing in San Antonio now. Working on a lounge, not a brewery, but doesn't get around quite as much as he used to, but I'm sure y'all run into each other at some point. He really is one of my favorite people around the industry. It's just an industry filled with great people. Bart Watson, Dr. J, it's just absolutely rife. Terry Ferendorf. I mean, we are very very fortunate as an industry, John Hall, Brian Roth, Kate Bernat, to just be absolutely surrounded by greatness on a
Oh
regular
yeah.
basis.
Yeah. And Kate is so like humble of a person. Like just like I feel like before
He's
we
the
came
best.
on, I'm trying not to geek out. She's like, "Oh, stop!" Like I'm just like, you're like, you're up here, So it's,
Oh, she's the
you
best.
know,
M. Souter, Mike Finance. I mean,
I
it's
gotta get
just
M back on. M is awesome. Yeah.
Mike Finance, Max Finance. Sorry, Max. You can tell him a few beers and a couple of whiskeys in at this point, but no, this industry is just incredible. The people are incredible, and even for people who you're just engaging with this as a consumer, engaging with this as just a fan of craft beer, none of this is possible without you. And even for you, people who just enjoy this or hobbyists or homebrewers, we not only need you, we not only run this entire industry off of you, off of your love, off of your interest, off of your passion, but we want that feedback too. We all got into this because we love beer and people, and that people part is critical because sharing the beer with customers, sharing the beer with people on the other side of the bar, sharing the beer with other people in the industry, that is the payoff. That's what makes all this worth it, because this isn't why we do this.
Yeah.
This is why we do this.
Yeah.
And I wish more people had that level of insight to realize that, it's not about navel gazing about what the ideal beer is. It's about what the beer allows you to do. And those bonding experiences, those experiences of togetherness, of friendship and camaraderie, that's what this industry is really about. Chris Shields, Barry Elwanger, Jason Pratt, the list goes on, of just the Leo Wong of people around this industry that I admire and respect. That's what this is all about, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, it's phenomenal in what it is. I mean, once you're kind of become a part of it, it's just like I said, the different things I've been involved in over the course of my time. It's not another community like it. It's just it's one of those cool type. Like I said, not to make it sound like it's a clique or something, like that, but it's just it's just a good feeling vibe. It's just the warmth of it, just like just the fun and everybody's there for that one thing, and it's people from all different perceptions, backgrounds, groups, all that kind of stuff, and it's just a community where you just have these great conversations, you share ideas, you make new friends, and it's kind of like you can be on this side of the aisle, you can be on that side of the aisle, but that doesn't stop us from being able to do stuff. Like you said, you wish more people would do it outside the beer industry, right? Like it would be that much more of a better type place, probably, in my opinion. Because to me, I always tell you, like beer's like the ultimate elixir in my book. I mean, there's been so many things that have historically been done around beer. It's funny. One of my old college friends, she sent me a picture yesterday, going back and forth with the White House, with the United States, Canada, Mexico, all kind of stuff. There was a picture one of the breweries in Canada put out, and it had the White House on fire. But it was all, I don't know if you saw it or not, like, because it's been going around online, but outside, it was all revolutionary type soldiers. And I was like, oh, I said, that's pretty fun. I said, that's kind of funny. And she's like, what do you mean? Like, I said, that's literally like, that's the War of 1812 when Britain burnt down the White House, but it was French soldiers who would make up basically Canada and indigenous people, which was basically Mexico and America, that saved America's ass against the British. And now this brewery is just basically putting this out there on the new beer thing they're doing, like kind of like, to me, I was like, it was like a Hunger Games, like sayonara, like good luck, wish you the best type thing, But like, don't forget, we were the ones that saved your ass when the British almost took you over. It was
you mean the War of 1812, the one where we invaded Canada and lost?
Yeah. It was like this FU type thing. So it was kind of interesting to see that on.
You mean the Second American War of Independence that we try not to talk about because it wasn't a good look. It wasn't cute. I love history. I wish more people would study it, man. And not our finest moment as a country.
Well, I gave it a thumbs up, and she was like, "Is that a thumbs up or supposed to be a thumbs down?" I'm like, no, I get the humor of the historical irony of the whole picture when I was looking at it and stuff. And I explained it all to her. She was like, she didn't even realize that. She was just like, thanks for the history lesson. I didn't even pick all that stuff up there. It was just kind of, to me, it was a pretty good ironic type thing that was actually done with it. So, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, it's just, I'm one of those people that can find humor in just about everything, right? Like, so it's always like, some things I may laugh at, you may not laugh at, but I might find a humor in it. So, and I just found that to be one of those humorous type things because I saw what they were like, the irony of the whole picture and what was taking place in it.
Oh, I'm notorious for laughing at the weirdest stuff. I
Yeah.
think I'm a huge fan of satire, huge fan of using humor to look at things through alternative lenses. I think you can both laugh and cry at something at the same time, and
Yeah.
the laughter helps us cope to recover from the crying and the anger. And so, take those opportunities where you can. My favorite movie of all time, which is sadly so forgotten about these days, is Dr. Strangelove by Stanley
Oh, yeah.
Kubrick.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like it's a satire. If you've never seen it, please do look it up. It's a black and white satire about the Cold War, but it is utterly brilliant. Like you cannot get to the other side without laughing, but also being a little bit disturbed and also thinking a little too hard about stuff. And honestly, I think that's what the best humor does
Yeah.
is makes us kind of confront those things from a different angle.
Well, that's always why I've always been a fan of like George Carlin or Lenny Bruce or Chris Rock, Richard Pryor. The great ones make you think while they make you laugh as well. It's kind of like, all the jokes got a little bit of truth in them, right? When you listen to kind of the stuff there. So those are like some of the best ones.
Man, Richard Pryor has grown on me so much the older I've got. He's so on the nose that when I was younger, I didn't fully appreciate him. But man, and Lenny Bruce is kind of like that too, where some of the stuff he says is just, he's just going to say the thing that you ain't supposed to be saying, but it really does make you have to confront those things. And me and my wife were just watching the SNL 50th anniversary the other night, and that was one of my things I commented on was, sometimes you need those people who are going to push the envelope because no one else feels like being polite enough to do so. So the Lenny Bruces of the world, the Richard Pryors of the world, those are essential.
Yeah, you ever want to go back in time, listen to some of the old Red Fox stuff when he was doing it.
So good.
Yeah, back in the day, like for the younger folk, because I'm, my parents, when they would like listen to, they'd be like, put the kids in bed, and basically it'd have to come out a vinyl record of like this thing a record you buy at a record store that was like a brown bag, like it was considered the blue comedy section of the stuff, and some of the stuff that he did back then, and some of the other raunchy type comedians, but it's just hilarious. But it's so funny how basically how that had to be done, when they were kind of shielding the youngsters away from it and stuff.
Oh, the number of people whose careers on sitcoms and family sitcoms, like Sanford and Son or Bob Saget on Full House is another one.
Dirtiest comedian.
Oh my God, people have no idea, and I'm like, I know that's America's Dad, but also like listen to some of his stand-up. No, I love digging into some of their careers outside of where they're most known, because a lot of times they got a lot more to say on a lot of stuff. That might be what launched them to fame, but it's not the end of the conversation they're introducing.
Oh no, I remember one time seeing the Mike Curry did the old show Hang on Mr. Cooper on ABC. And he had HBO, like when they did HBO comedy specials, and he was on there, and he's like, I know a lot of y'all see me from Hang on Mr. Cooper. Just to let you know, this is stand up. This ain't Mr. Cooper. He's just like going on. And he did not get the Mr. Cooper version during his stand-up.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But Aaron, I know I've had kept you on there for a bit. I really appreciate you coming on. So much more I could ask you about. I can't have you the whole time. Like I told Kate, like I got to bring you back for something else down the line. So
hey, I would love to be here. Thank you so much, Rod, for having me on. This has been a long time coming. I'm a huge admirer of what you're doing, just being able to get some of these conversations out there, get them going. To everybody watching, Rod's the best, man. Show some love for this guy, but also just show some love for your local breweries, show some love for this industry. And, as an industry, we need to do everything that we can to show some love for you. Things are about to get hard. They're about to get a lot different. But, if there's one constant, it's, again, this is that one thing. So let's stick around that, share a beer, whatever that beer may be, and remember the fact that at the end of the day, we all got a lot more in common than we got different. Let's focus on that and use those differences to help us all grow.
Excellent. Yes, definitely. And if you would hang out for a bit, I got to ask you when we could lock up here for a second. But Check out Aaron. I got his link in there on Facebook, pinned to the top. If you haven't followed Aaron on Facebook, make sure to follow him there as well. If you have not watched the tariff video I uploaded today, make sure to take a look at that. It's a short one. It's like 3.5, 4 minutes, I think, but just an outline around the tariffs and touching into some of the stuff you may have not seen us talk about earlier. Next Tuesday night, do a live stream with Dave from Beer in Front, who you've seen on the happy hour here on Thursdays before. We're going to be talking about diving into some stuff. We've actually got some breweries and some malt owners that are going to kind of be voicing some stuff there too. So it'll be kind of interesting on some of the details that we'll be sharing. So if you're around Tuesday night, that'll be 8 o'clock. Tomorrow night, happy hour. Happy hour will be 9 o'clock tomorrow night, not 8 if you catch this, because got to do something beforehand. So it'll probably be like a 2-hour edition. But next Monday night, 10-year celebration. Next Wednesday night, Body by Beer podcast will be on. Next Thursday night, another happy hour. It's a pretty heavy week, y'all. So I don't know. I might be dragging by next weekend for sure. But thanks again for Aaron for being here, and for the person that I don't know who it is, because I go through Spreadshirt on stuff, but someone just bought a shirt off the Spreadshirt. Appreciate the support there as well. If you guys want to check out some of the novelty type stuff, you can see usually at the bottom of the video here, or go to the link tree. It'll take you into the merch type store. If you want to get yourself a little gear, support the channel, feel free to do so. But I always ask people, if you got a shirt, let me know. Shoot me a picture so I can share it out there for you as well. Always want to see you guys rocking the Rod J BeerVentures gear. That being said, I'm winded. I'm going to finish my beer. I'm going to sign off. Thank you again, Aaron, and I will look to catch you guys tomorrow night. Cheers, everybody.